What's going on, everyone? We know something is. It's your girl, Big Keish, and you are tuned into the very first episode of the Prayer and Hustle series. And I have none other than the Jycorri Spitty Robinson. Okay?
Hey.
I had to bring my whole book, my whole Prayer and Hustle book to read this intro. Okay?
Okay.
Because there was no way I was going to be able to memorize this, and I need to get all of this, okay? So, today, I am sitting with Jycorri Spitty Robinson from Milwaukee, a true pioneer of digital marketing in the hip hop world. He is a brilliant innovator because his mind and what he creates has always been years ahead, with the industry always having to catch up. He has over 15 years of experience telling the stories by creating trailblazing marketing strategies for some of the biggest names in hip hop, okay? He has worked with prominent hip hop brands and labels such as The Source, Geffen Records, Warner Bros. Records, and the Def Jam Records, where he oversaw historic and groundbreaking campaigns working with artists such as Kanye, Snoop Dogg, Common, Nelly Furtado, and many, many more. Having lent his prescient vision for years to others, he came to establish his own brands, first creating Supreme Marketing, where he immediately landed foundational clients such as Akon, Young Jeezy, Future, and more. His ability to create cutting-edge content also led him to start a lifestyle and digital music platform called Dirty Glove, highlighting Midwest and Southern artists, and also cultivating an iconic and highly successful interview series widely known as Off the Porch. If you haven't watched it, go watch it right now. Actually, after this. So some of his past clients include Nas, Kanye, Pusha, Young Dolph, Future, 2 Chainz, T.I., and many, 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 many more. Or we be all here all night. Okay? Spitty right here, he has a mind like no other, and with an enviable network, proven work ethic, and a perpetual sense of what's next, it's clear Spitty will not only envision the industry, what's next with the industry, the next seismic shift, but he also will be at the forefront of it. So welcome. You are my very first guest.
Hey, I gotta clap that up because I mean, yo, can I bring you on the road with me? I need that intro. Come on, like that was amazing. That's what's up. Even hearing that is, it's even I've done it, but it's like when you're in it, it's easy to not sit back and like actually recognize and even appreciate sometimes what you've done. So that's amazing. I appreciate that intro.
Yeah, I know I had to do it. I had to because even meeting you. So I mean, we met last October, and meeting you, you're just so humble. We met at a yoga event. Okay, we shout out to Elle.
Yeah, shout out to Elle.
And Loasis. But that's where we met, and I remember we just immediately started talking about like mental health and spirituality, because I had just came off a 3-day water fast, and you were telling me about your spiritual journey and your weight loss journey.
Yeah.
And then maybe like 2 weeks later, me, you, Elle, and Ari, we went on a hike.
Yeah.
And we just got so deep and we shared so many stories. And I think what's so beautiful about it is because, and the reason why I wanted to start this series is because people want to judge other people or just look at other people based on what they do instead of who they are. And I feel like we met and we gelled just based on who we were, all four of us, and us too, and the two of us. And when I did my research on you, I'm like, oh my God, like he let me interview him? Little old me? Like, you have done amazing, amazing, amazing things that like true hip hop, and because hip hop is for intellectuals, okay? That you have, obviously I've read only not even half of what he's done. Like, you are so incredible. So like,
thank you.
How would you personally define yourself? If a stranger didn't know who you were to ask you like, who are you, Spitty?
I'm a vessel, like for real. you know, it's interesting because I feel like I understood, or I grasped a good understanding of, I guess, like my purpose kind of early. And, you know, even, you know, what you saying, you know, joking, saying, you know, you let me interview you, but, you know, it's like, for me, I go off of, you know, like feeling. I go off of, you know, just my intuition. And, you know, even, you know, and being a forward thinker, you know, I feel like what you're doing and what you're building is, you know, gonna be great. And so, you know, I'm appreciative of being the first guest here, but I feel like that is a part of, you know, me, is, you know, being able to recognize things in people that they might not even see in themselves, but, you know, being able to just step into, you know, things early on, and even, you know, help show people like their potential in terms of like what they can do, you know, to be greater, or to, you know, reach the goals that, you know, they're trying to reach. So I would say that, like, you know, I'm a vessel. Like, all of my friends, you know, kind of call on me. I'm like the therapist, like, for a lot of my partners. You know, and when I meet people, you know, it's, people will tell me their business or their secrets, or, you know, things like that, like, pretty easy, because, you know, they feel comfortable, you know, around me or with me or whatever. So, if I had to define myself, I would say that, like, I'm a vessel, you know, for other people, and I'm utilizing the blessings that I have and that I've received to be able to, you know, pass them on to other people, and, you know, help them to hopefully reach their goals and things like that. And I haven't even reached all my goals yet, you know what I mean? So it's, you know what I mean? But it's, you know, just wanting to be that, you know, for people.
Yeah. And what you have been doing is groundbreaking, and I must say you are absolutely walking in your purpose, if that's your purpose, because as I'm doing my research, and literally I just put out another one of my series, and it led me to watch like some of my past series. Like, I started a whole entrepreneur artist interview series in 2016, where I was like literally walking through Newburgh, New York, like with an artist called Dope Coley. And I'm like, wow. And I remember looking back, like, I was one of the first ones to do that. But, and then reading your stories, I'm just like, I wish I would have kept going, just like Spitty did. So that you're so inspiring, and the epitome of what you can be if you just keep on going, and then keep on believing in yourself, and believing in the vision. Like, that's the most important thing. That's the one of the most, like, one of the main things that I took out of it is, like, he saw things that other people did not see, and that's how he was able to move the needle.
For sure.
So, you said it started from, like, this passion of music started when you were younger. So KRS-One.
Come on, I mean, you know, my brother's 8 years older than me, so when I was growing up, I was hearing so much music that, you know, maybe like my friends at my same age weren't really hearing. But I mean, you know, I grew up in, I mean, we were listening to KRS-One, A Tribe Called Quest, you know, LL Cool J, you know what I mean? But then I was also listening to NWA and Scarface and, you know, all that. Used to walk to the record store with my brother, because this was in, like, still some, I guess if you want to say, like, the latter years of vinyl and all of that. And, like, we would go and, like, buy records and buy tapes and all that. Like, I remember buying Crisscross tape, you know, totally crossed out when it came out. That was probably the first tape that I actually, like, saved some money for and bought myself, and was trying to wear my clothes backwards. And in my, what was it, my talent show in elementary school, like, I performed jump. So, you know what I mean? Like, like, hip hop has been, you know, something, and music in general, not even just hip hop, because, you know, my mom listened to, you know, jazz and, you know, of course, like, the classic soul and R&B and all that. And so that was the soundtrack, you know, in our house. And so I've just always, you know, been into music, and just, you know, it just hit me in a different way, to where, you know, like, I can, you know, I really, you know, feel it, and just, you know, grew a passion for it early, you know, so.
So I feel like as I listen to you, and because I'll be honest, like I was never like a music head. I just listened to the same thing over and over, like that Lauryn Hill album over and over and over. I loved Nas, and I feel like it was the message. Like what I feel from you is like it was the message
Yeah.
from the music, and the like how it resonated with your spirit.
Yeah, for sure.
So I feel like that's different. That's different. Like that definitely sets you apart. So what was it that you felt in your spirit at such a young age that you probably couldn't vocalize maybe? But what was it that you felt?
I think, I mean, I could relate to it so much, you know. I mean, these dudes from similar neighborhoods, you know, like that I'm from, and so they telling their stories, and I might not have been doing some of the same things that some of them were doing,
Yeah.
but I mean, like I said, you grow up in these environments, you see some of these same things, and so it was just really relatable. And then certain artists like, you know, KRS-One, certain, you know, groups like A Tribe Called Quest, like people who, you know, artists like Rakim, artists like Scarface, you know, artists that really embody spirituality in their music and in their messages and things like that. Like I was gravitating to that early and could really, you know, relate to that. And so, you know, it was just the soundtrack of my life, and it was just something that I could just really relate to, and that I became connected to. You know, I felt like when I would listen to their music, you know, it's like I felt like I was there. You know what I mean? And so yeah, I just, you know, fell in love with hip hop as soon as you know, it first hit my ears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you went time for you to go to college. Why did you choose marketing?
So it's interesting because so before even going to college, I actually switched majors a couple of times, and so and following in my older brother's footsteps. I mean, you know, my big thing in my life was that like my whole life I was like kind of chasing after my big brother, who was an amazing role model for me. Very inspirational dude, really smart. He was a track star in Wisconsin in hurdles. He still holds like some of the records like in high hurdles, like from 1992. He was a football star. He was a scholar, like straight A student, and he was into engineering. And he went on to be a mechanical engineer. So, you know, I followed in every footstep of him. Played football, ran track, even though I was too fat to run track, but I tried it. And then, you know, all the way to wanting to be an engineer. I thought I wanted to be a mechanical engineer. And so went to college, started out at that. It was boring to me though. I've always been into computers though. Like one thing that my brother did for me that was, I believe, like probably like the pivot of my life was he bought me a computer, and this was in, you know, it's funny, like, I mean, I'm aging myself, but it is what it is. Like, this was in the times when computers weren't like a normal just thing to have, you know? And so, like, I was like the only cat in the hood with a computer, you know? And I remember when he bought me this laptop, this compact Presario, and he was like, this isn't a gift, this is an investment. And he was like, so make sure that the return on my investment, you know, is good. I remember him telling me that. And so I took that computer and I made it my world. So anyway, you know, fast forward to, you know, going to college, I tried to jump into the computer science realm because I was into like coding and building websites, and I self-taught myself how to do all of that. But then I realized that I didn't want to do that either, that I felt like that was boring as well. And so I took an accounting class, and the professor from that accounting class, you know, told me one day, like, you know, the way that your mind works, he was like, you know, you're really creative, and I think you'd be like good in business just because of how, you know, handle these assignments in class and things like that, and just how you taught. And so I was like, wow. So then you know, my first couple of years in college, I was throwing parties, and, you know, like got really popular on campus for like throwing some of the biggest parties on campus. And so, but my grades were slipping. So basically, I had to like get that accounting professor to write me a letter to help me to transition from the School of Engineering over to the School of Applied Economics, so that I could then pursue, you know, a different major. And so he helped me out. Like I was about to fail out of school or whatever. He helped me out. They gave me one last chance, and so I switched my major to Applied Economics and Marketing. And yeah, it was on ever since. And all of the marketing classes, like, that was easy for me. I was excelling in like the business and the marketing classes and stuff. So it was interesting because I'm like, man, I've been getting my ass kicked by calculus and physics and all this other stuff. And I'm like, damn, you know, didn't even know that my path, you know, like, you know, where it was. But, you know, it's interesting, you know, like to, you know, that's why I tell people, like, when you go to college or if you decide to go to college or whatever you're doing, like, you don't have to know what you want to do, you know, in the beginning. But, you know, for me, a big thing that I hold to myself is I have to finish what I started. And I knew that I couldn't not finish college. Even if I didn't like what I was doing or didn't want to, I had to finish it. So yeah, but that was why I transitioned, you know, to marketing and how I got into that.
That's good, and you loved it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, marketing for me, I don't know, my mind hits like a roadblock. But with you, you loved marketing because you could tell stories.
Yeah.
So how did you like align your spirituality and your storytelling?
That's interesting. So I'll say that I identified my spirituality pretty early as well. You know, my mom wasn't the type to force, you know, church or things like that, you know, on us. But when I was younger, I did go to church. I used to go to church with my granddad and my grandma, and you know, we would go to church regularly, and I did that. But then my mom had the Quran. My mom had the Bible at the house. She had the Quran. Like she, you know, my mom was an avid reader, and so, you know, she told me like, hey, make sure that you're knowledgeable about different things on earth, because not one, you know, one thing that people tell you isn't law. And, you know, she emphasized that to me. And so she told me, like, you know, I'm not telling you which direction to go in, but I just want you to have an open mind, you know, to, you know, what's out there and all of that. And so I took that, and I didn't feel as connected, you know, when going to church as I felt like I probably should be. And I guess it's because I didn't agree with the idea that if you don't believe in this one thing, you're going to hell. You know, I'm like, the earth is too big, like, for that thought process. That's how I felt, at least, you know. Excuse anybody that's super religious or you know what I mean? But anyway, so I identified my spirituality and understanding that I was more into spirituality than, let's say, religion, you know, per se. And so that's just, so I've just always applied just, you know, just my spirituality, how I feel, just being good to people. You know, those saying like, you know, doing to others as they do to you, as you want them to do onto you. You know, and so basically I identified that, you know, the spirituality part early. Now, how I connected that to storytelling, I think that you connect, I mean, I think that within storytelling, spirituality is almost automatic if that is, you know, like what you're tethered to, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like when I'm storytelling, I definitely like to tap into like parts of the story that, like what defines a person, or most of the time our spirituality or our morals and things like that are sort of what, you know, shape our stories, you know what I mean? Whether it's a brand or a person or whatever it is. So that's just always been something, like, I like to dig a little deeper, if you want to say, you know what I mean, into, you know, into, you know, subjects or, you know, whatever I'm working on. So, yeah.
I'm the same exact way. Like, I have to go deep.
Yeah.
Like I'll be on this branch and then it's like one big tree, like on this branch, but
Yeah.
okay, now I gotta go on this branch. I need to know the whole tree.
Yeah, nah, for sure. Same. Like I'm so like I'm so into the details and
Yeah.
like even when I do my research, you know, on different things, like how you just said, like I mean, I'm digging and finding, you know, so much and so and going into like the nuances
Yeah.
and you know just trying to you know pick out like some of the like find where the magic's at, you know.
Yeah. Right. And I feel like creativity is spiritual.
For sure.
Like, cause it comes straight from the spirit.
For sure, because for me, like somebody can say something to me, or I can hear something, and then ideas just start, you know, popping up, and it's kind of, you know, sometimes, you know, like my head is just full of ideas, you know what I mean, or sometimes I have to like kind of slow myself down because I'll like, you know, like almost how can I say it?
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
You have to be present because how obviously, like how your mind works is thinking of the next thing. It's
Yeah.
thinking of the next best thing. Like you've created platforms that the industry wasn't there yet. And you created it, and it took them years to catch up to even start visualizing that themselves, or however. Yeah. So I absolutely get it. I understand. I am the same way.
Yeah.
So you work in an industry that is kind of known to be dark, and especially with, you know, a lot of things that's happening right now, a lot of people going down. How do you maintain that balance, or the boundaries, like with your spirituality and also working in this environment?
Yeah, so finding a balance with the spirituality, you know, within this line of work, within the culture, you know, can be really difficult. It's really easy to fall into the peer pressure of, you're working with talent, and you know, like they may be doing certain things, or there may be certain temptations. I don't even want to say it like that. They're doing certain things. I want to say there may be certain temptations, or you know, things like that. You know, in these environments, and so, you know, basically, like what I've learned is that number one, I understand that there's a separation between business and friends, and you know, knowing that when I'm walking into these environments, when I'm working with these artists, or you know, or with talent, that even though it's, you know, the work is fun and is really enjoyable, you know, and it doesn't feel like work, you know, and a lot of these settings are social settings. Early on, I treated all of those settings as professional settings. Some game that a mentor of mine gave to me early on. I mean, I remember my first time ever going to, so I was writing for The Source magazine. I was interning for The Source at the time. I wrote for The Source also, but at this time I was interning, and we were going to meet Snoop Dogg. It was like one of my first trips to LA, and my mentor, right before we got out the car, he said, look, we're about to, you know, be around Snoop and all of his peoples. We're about to be in his trailer, and people are going to be offering for you to smoke weed, but don't smoke with anybody here. Now, me being young, still in college, in LA for the first time, I mean, it's everybody's dream to smoke with Snoop, you know what I mean? And then also me not knowing at that time just how to separate the professional side from like, okay, we're here having fun. I'm like, damn, like, I want to go home and like be able to tell my partners like I smoked a blunt with Snoop, but he really broke it down to me that look, like we're here to work, they're here to work and do their thing, but you got to let them be them, and you have to, you know, stay professional so that at no time does anyone overstep any boundaries with you when it comes to, you know, professionalism. And so that was something that I learned early on, and that I've taken with me, you know, along my journey. And so, again, we're in these environments that you're having fun. We may be at bars or clubs, you know, things like that. or a video shoot or something like that, where we're in a club and everybody's having fun and drinking and all of that. And I just, learned to, be professional in those settings. And that could be at least one way, to not even have to have that conflict, with my spirituality, because I drank too much and, got turned up, and now I'm talking to folks crazy, or I'm, like doing something that's out of bounds that could, take me out of that setting, by me not having more opportunities to be able to, work in these settings. So yeah, like for me, it's about, when I'm working with these artists, I go to work, I take my ass home. You know what I mean? And then also another thing that I learned too is that, and this is a really difficult one too, is that like all money isn't good money. And so I've in a bunch of scenarios have turned down money, from artists who have tried to pay me, who have, brought, like a bag of money to me, to do some work for them. But me just either having a feeling and not feeling right in the scenario, and not wanting to, having the foresight to not want to put myself in a compromising situation, or just directly knowing that, if I work with this particular person, that, something negative may come from it. I've used my intuition and as well as some of my common sense, to help me to make, those better decisions.
Ooh, that's a perfect thing to touch upon, is the feeling, is that you felt it and you trusted it.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. You trusted it, because that's one thing I learned too, is like, it's the feeling. Like our feelings are the indication of the alignment.
Yeah.
And so, it leads me to think, because looking at your resume, doing my research, it's like, okay, you make it look easy, period. You make it look easy. It's like all these ideas came to him straight from God and he just made it happen. So what were some of like the challenges that you had to face, and how did you overcome them?
I mean, there have been several, over time. I mean, everything from, I remember living in New York, and I was working at Warner Brothers, and at the time I was having like some issues, with my boss, to where he would, talk to me a certain way, and I really wanted to, like put hands on this man, and something that I had to learn too, and being in these professional settings, and coming from a segregated city like Milwaukee, your interactions with people of the opposite race are most of the time negative, which I think sort of not programs us, but it makes it to where in any scenario similar to that, you only want to resort to, what you know.
Right.
And so I was dealing with a situation like that where, my boss was, talking to me, a type of way. And so, and then I felt like was trying to set me up to, to be able to fire me, in a professional way. But I'm like, okay, the setup's coming. So I just remembered like really praying on the situation. Like I really had to, I remember, talking to my moms and asking her, like, what should I do? Like, I want to quit this job. Like, I don't know what to do. This dude is, saying obscene things to me that like a man just shouldn't be saying to another man, just disrespectful. And thankfully he ain't call me the N-word or nothing like that, you know what I mean? But, so anyway, but my mom's, I remember she told me like, yo, just pray on it, and it'll come to you. And so then I prayed on it, and I remember like the next day, a friend of mine told me about a job that was in New York at Def Jam, and at the time I didn't want to move to New York. I loved LA so much, and I felt like I was, establishing a home there. My brother had happened to move to LA around the same time that I had moved to LA, pursuing some different endeavors. So it was like perfect. I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like we establishing our family here, like everything. Okay, bet. Like this is cool. But the circumstances that be with the, current job I was in, it was going downhill. And so I had to, pray on it some more. And then I remember a bunch of people that I knew in the music industry were applying for this digital marketing position at Def Jam, and nobody was getting it. People that I thought like, man, if this dude didn't get it, like I'm for sure not gonna get it. And I remember even talking like that and moving in that sense. And so I didn't apply for it for that reason. And my mentor told me like, man, F that.
Yeah.
Like, man, go apply for that, go apply for that, go get that, like make that move, go do that. And I was so scared to do it. And I went and applied for it and I got it. And I remember I just couldn't believe, that I had gotten it. But anyway, the satisfaction that I was able to have to be able to walk into that boss's office and quit, and he had just like cursed me out after a meeting. Like I was like, hey, can I sit and talk to you about something? And then he like proceeded to like curse me out about something. And I was like, no, I can't effing talk right now, no. And I was like, well, I just wanted to let you know I'm putting in my 2 weeks notice. All right, well, so thanks for the talk, and just walked out. And so, but it's like a situation almost forced me to get out of my comfort zone and make one of the biggest decisions of my life, which, was a huge pivot, for my career. And I feel like, even everything that's, happening now kind of came to fruition from making that one move, even though I've made other moves in my life, but I feel like that one move and in that scenario, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. I'm responding because like what you're saying just resonates so deeply, because I feel like the average person who doesn't have that spiritual aspect within their life will look at that situation like, what, like, why me? Like, what's going on? Like, everything's going wrong. Like, for instance, you're thinking you love LA. Your brother just moved out there. You think this is perfect. I like my job, even though, a-holes, whatever. But the things that were really holding you there, the staple that was holding you there, the job was starting to come loose.
yeah.
And recognizing that, and no, at first doubting and choosing not to apply for that position at Def Jam out of fear and doubt just because of what you saw outside of you. So thank God for your mentor, number one. But I feel like that is such a perfect example of how God works.
Absolutely.
Like, of how God works.
Absolutely.
Like, to the average person, it looks like negative, right? But it's like how you reframe your mind and your perspective on how to look at that situation as a blessing that's helping you shift to what's next, which is bigger and better. Yeah,
no, for sure. I mean, I really, I really had to be in tune with myself and allow myself to actually listen to my spirit, because a lot of times we won't do that. A lot of times, they say that little voice in the back of your head or that gut feeling when something happens and you just feel something. Or sometimes if, you need to make a decision, but you're kind of questioning it a couple of times, and it's like, sometimes that's that intuition telling you like, what you need to do. But then, sometimes we either don't believe that voice is real and don't follow it, because I've had times where I haven't followed that voice. And then I've been mad, like, man, now see, every time I listen to that voice, I never fail myself. Why didn't I listen to it then?
Yeah. And what's that voice?
I mean, that voice is usually me, I feel like. You know what I mean? I feel like it's or if it's, like how you got like the person
angel,
on the shoulder, the angels on the shoulders or whatever. I mean, I feel like it's, somewhat that. I mean, I feel like it's a combination of God speaking to me, but then also I feel like, I mean, I don't even want to get weird, but I also
get weird.
So, I really believe like that, like the ancestors,
Yes, absolutely. We have a spiritual team.
Yeah.
How is that weird?
Yeah. So
He was joking.
yeah, nah, my
Y'all
fault,
ain't
y'all.
weird.
My fault, y'all. Cause I got a
Thank
whole
you.
group of them.
Yeah, no, we got a spiritual team. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
Like, so just side note, I guess. Prayer and hustle is not just I'm a Christian, like I only believe in this, or whoever it resonates with. Because I remember when I first started my brand, Prayer and Hustle, that was kind of like a talking point, like, well, what is it, the religion that you're focusing on? I'm like, I'm not focusing on any religion. Like, I'm spiritual. Like, I don't identify myself with any religion. Like, but I truly have walked with God and walked out on faith despite the fear, but also wanting to take that chance on not only myself, but on God. Like, honestly, for God to prove to me that what you're saying, okay, in this Bible, that is true.
Yeah.
Like, asking it is given. All right, show me. Like,
Yeah.
so what I want to say, like, you had a blessing, like you had your mentor,
Yeah.
you know, to tell you, you better apply for that job, especially if you feel the fear.
Yeah.
I feel like, especially if you feel the fear.
He told me to get out of my comfort zone, get out of whatever little comfort zone you thinking that you built right here. Get out of that ASAP.
So what would you say to that individual? Because that's one of your gifts, is seeing those gifts within other people that they might not see. So what would you say to that young Black man that has a lot of gifts and talents, but came from an environment such as the one you came from, but didn't have a mentor figure, had people around them that maybe they are using them as examples of like what's available to them and only available to them. So what would you say to that young Black man to get out of the comfort zone and the limitations that he's placed upon himself?
Yeah. I mean, I would tell them to first, make sure that, make sure that they're dreaming big. Like, make sure that, like that your dreams and your goals are big. But then also I would tell them to, make sure that they're, number one, get out of your comfort zone. Like that's something that I learned early on. And so, I mean, I've had scenarios with, again, like I've been blessed in these different positions that I've been in, whether it's been at a Warner Brothers or a Def Jam or the Source or wherever it's been, where, I've had people who have worked for me. And in numerous scenarios, I've been able to, sort of help, point them in certain directions of where I may have seen like, hey, you have strengths here, or you have, or you have strengths in this area. Like you should consider, I mean, I'll give a perfect example. So shout out to my guy K-Bar, who worked for me at Def Jam, and he was a graphic designer when I first moved to New York and worked and started working in the digital marketing department at Def Jam. K-Bar was a graphic designer. He was a dude from Canarsie, East New York. And
Dangerous, especially in that time.
Yes, and me being an avid hip hop listener, like I heard a lot of cats talking about East New York and talking about that area, and it's like, yo, don't play out there, you know. So I said it to say I knew that he was from an environment similar to the environment I grew up in, which was a war zone, and I just remember he was so smart and like had so many ideas when we would be in meetings and stuff. So I pulled him to the side one day and I said, hey man, you bigger than just a graphic designer, bro. Like you much bigger than just doing that. I was like, so make sure that when you're in these meetings that you're taking notes and that you're really paying attention to how this stuff is flowing. I said, make sure that you're putting your ideas out there and that you're putting your voice out there. I said, because you're going to be one of the next people like leading this wave, of marketing. And, we fast forward and K-Bar is, one of the most successful like people within like the digital marketing space, in music, and has worked with everybody from A$AP Rocky to, I mean, he just like did all the marketing on Nas's album to, I mean, he just really, took that and ran with it and grew with it. And it's just amazing, seeing him, come into his own, You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even from, you know, I remember he and I talked a lot about like just moving, you know, to a different city. And, you know, I had just moved from LA to New York at that time. And so him being from New York, I was like, man, at some point you should like move and, you know, get out of New York for a while and, you know, try something else. And I remember him joking and being like, man, I don't know, bro. I don't think I could, you know, leave New York. Like, I love New York. But, you know what I mean? That cat live in LA, love LA, be all over the world traveling and, you know, just doing just dope, amazing things. And so, yeah, I think like, you know, just being able to like see things and people that they might not even see in themselves, you know, I'm glad to have that blessing. You know what I mean?
And to take that chance and champion them to take that chance on themselves.
Yeah.
So you are Def Jam, one of the biggest record labels, right? But you had to also take that chance on yourself and make that shift and establish your own brand.
For sure.
Because obviously, like, it was you. Like, all those innovative ideas, that was coming from your brain. It was that God was planting those seeds. And like you said, it overflow to the point where now you're like, nah, I got to establish my own thing. So how was that shift?
So let me say this too first before I even talk about that, because it's so important within the spirituality realm and everything that we're talking about. Like, I, honest to God, manifested writing for the Source magazine and working at Def Jam. As a kid, you know, in Milwaukee, being at the block parties, rapping at the block parties, and, you know, like doing, you know, just trying to be a part of hip hop. When I was, you know, when I was getting older, the rave, there's this venue in Milwaukee, a famous venue called the Rave. All the top artists, you know, come there and perform. It's like a House of Blues type of venue, but in Milwaukee. And so I learned how to sneak into the Rave, and I would like take some of my partners who rapped, and we would like go to these concerts and go backstage, and, you know what I mean? So I always knew that like I was gonna be like working in the music industry somehow, some way. But it was a dream of mine from being a kid, and anybody from my neighborhood would tell you that I said when I was younger, I'm gonna write for the Source magazine. I'm gonna work at Def Jam. Russell Simmons was a huge inspiration for me, and also the reason why I even went to college. I literally went to college because I saw Russell Simmons' story, and I saw that like he went to college, he was roommates with this white guy, and they ended up becoming business partners, and they, you know, developed this, you know, dope company. Me being from a very segregated place and in an ignorant mind state, but I would say positive ignorant because it was just not being aware or whatever. My dream was I'm going to college, I'm gonna meet a white cat and we gonna start a business and get into hip hop. You know, I mean, you know, I'm joking, but not joking. You know what I mean? Because I seriously went to college because I was like, I gotta get out of this war zone, and I'm gonna follow in Russell Simmons' footsteps, you know, and you know, and do this. So I just wanted to tap on that, tap into that, because I feel like that's like really important in this story as well, and talking about that, you know, because that's a part of the spirituality as well. And I didn't know this when I was growing up. I didn't understand manifestation. I didn't understand that, you know, but one thing that I, you know, did kind of, something that was kind of, I guess if you want, I don't know if the word weird is the right word, but when I was young, I came to a realization that everything I said came true.
Absolutely.
And anything that I said that I wanted to do would come true, and it was kind of weird. And
so it's not weird. You realize that at such a young age. That's powerful. So how did you learn to like understand the power in your words then? And like, okay, you realize like, okay, everything I'm starting to say is coming true. So if everything I'm starting to say is coming true, let me not say the things that I don't want.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I learned the part about not saying the things I don't want until later. You know what I mean? In life, like, you know, just having that like understanding like that also the negative things come, you know, true as well. Because when you come from these negative environments, I mean, speaking negatively is almost like a defense mechanism. It's
Yeah.
almost a way for you to
Also growing up in the household and that's how you were spoken to.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
but you know what? Thankful for me, I grew up in a house full of love. You know what I mean? So
That's a
thankful.
blessing.
You know what
It's
I
a
mean?
blessing.
Like we didn't have money. We didn't have much money to
Yeah.
to do things with. But one thing that my mom's, you know, like really emphasized on,
Yeah.
and my family just as a whole,
Yeah.
is love and having each other's
That's a
back.
blessing.
And you know, and like you know, my mom never cursed at me when she would speak to me, or you know,
Thank you,
like
God.
I didn't have my daddy growing up, but my mom's only spoke of my pops in a positive way
Yeah.
because my
And
dad
that's
was
how
like
it
a
should be.
big entrepreneur, big successful real estate
Yes.
tycoon entrepreneur. So when she would tell me, you act like your daddy, it would be in a positive way of her telling me like you're an independent thinker like your father, like he thinks and moves like that. And that was, you know, the way that she would, you know, speak to me. I mean, my mama was a gangster. You know what I'm saying? Like she ain't play, and she was hardcore, and people knew not to play with her.
Oh no, I know what you mean. My biological mother is the same way.
Yeah, but
But
like
it's the real love.
it's the real
Yeah.
love and demanding and commanding respect, you know? And so thankfully, I grew up in that type of environment where I was taught, you know, to speak to people in a certain way and to move with a certain level of respect, you know what I mean? And, you know, things like that. So, but, you know, step outside of mama house and, you know, you get out in them streets and you know, everything happening and people, you know what I mean? People talking how they talk it or you know, just the world just outside of the house being real.
Yeah.
And having to navigate and take, you know, the real life game and information that, you know, she gave me and that my brother gave me. Cause like I said, my brother was, you know, huge within all of that too. And applying that and how I deal with people outside, you know what I mean? And how and which to this day still resonates because, you know, even with, you know, my clients or artists that I've worked with at labels or different people that I've worked with, that same ideology, that same vibe is what I bring across is, you know, demanding and commanding respect, but then also giving it, you know what I mean? To the umpteenth power.
Because another thing in manifesting is what you give is what you're going to receive.
Absolutely.
So you were giving love because you grew up in a household of love, which is a blessing. Thank you, God. Shout out to your mama. But also you were able, because of that, to build authentic, genuine relationships.
For sure.
So when you did make that shift to building and establishing your own brand, how was that for you?
So it was really scary. It was so scary because in the time in which I came into the music industry, it was becoming a dying industry. You know, it's interesting. I came in the digital realm and was working, you know, in digital marketing, which is the new age of the music industry. It was even called new media back then. But even with that, the labels were downsizing. So I remember my first job at Geffen, like 3 months into it, they laid off like 40 people. And I remember somebody telling me, I remember like we were at this meeting where they addressed it that a bunch of people got laid off. And I remember somebody telling me like, yeah, man, somebody got laid off for you to have your job. And that was my first job ever. So I remember being like, damn, that's crazy. And feeling bad, like feeling guilty almost, you know? But then fast forwarding to, you know, me starting my own business, why it was so scary and why it was so intimidating was because I had gotten laid off from Def Jam. And at the time that I got laid off, I had just come off of spearheading the marketing of Kanye, My Dark Twisted Fantasy. I created I created a live stream where it was like probably one of Kanye's first time breaking the internet, where I set up a live stream on this platform called Ustream, and he displayed the album cover. It was like that cartoon kind of album cover, but he's like, it's the woman naked on there. It's like a monster having sex with her.
Yeah.
So it's like, so anyway, we like broke the internet, you know what I mean? And then I worked with Big Sean, and we went from his first mixtape all the way to his first album. We had just released the Finally Famous album, and it was successful. I had just worked with Big Crit, who we had signed and helped release his project. I mean, it was just like Rick Ross. I had just worked the Teflon Don album. So I was on a roll. I was on, I even remember like when there were little, mentions of like there being layoffs in the building and a couple of us hanging out or whatever in the building, like even the night before the layoffs. I remember people being like, Jycorri, you ain't got nothing to worry about, bro. Like you working all the most major stuff here. Like you so important here. Like you in the middle of all of this. And I was, the way that like, especially at that time, the way that my mind was programmed with it was that I wasn't worried about being laid off because I had been laid off in the past anyway. And so I was just confident in my abilities. And then also I was aware at that time that, you thinking negatively can, create negative thoughts. So I just try not to think anything of it. And the next day I got laid off.
Yeah.
So when I got laid off, it was really scary because I'm like, all right, I got to figure this out. But I knew immediately that I didn't want to go and work at another label. I knew that I didn't want to just do that cycle again. I didn't want to go work at a label for 2, 3 years, 4 years or however, and then get laid off again because of whatever. So I made the decision then that I was gonna, work for myself and really try, the business route, really try my entrepreneur, route. And I just went full steam ahead with it. And I was blessed because, I always tell people when I remember getting laid off and I didn't have a vacation. I didn't have like a week where I like sat around just, eating, popcorn or whatever, just trying to figure out what's next. Literally the next day from me being laid off, like my phone was buzzing, I was setting up clients and I was, establishing my digital marketing firm, which was called Supreme Marketing Solutions at the time, which now is just Supreme Marketing. But I was even trying to be forward thinking back then with that. SMS marketing, Supreme Marketing Solutions, because of SMS texting.
Yeah.
Just trying to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know you were doing.
Yeah,
okay.
So, but eventually it turned just into Supreme Marketing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
But it was one of the most, I would say, intimidating things that I ever had to do because I really had to walk on faith.
Yeah.
And, not knowing where that next dollar is going to come from, not knowing, and things being finicky. Somebody might hire you for this amount of time, but that doesn't mean that they're going to continue to hire you.
So let me ask you this. So at this point, because all I hear is, oh, that was just God having to move that out the way. So now Jycorri can go and step into what's next for him, bigger and better. Yeah. Again, it's going to look like it was a loss, but it's a loss because you got to be prepared for what's the next that's coming. Yeah. The next that's coming. So did you find by then your confidence in God and then your confidence in yourself that like, regardless of the finicky, you don't know when the next dollars come in, you don't know how you going to pay your rent in a month, et cetera, et cetera. Like, did you find that confidence in God? I
definitely did. That move to New York really helped with that because I remember like my first like maybe month or two in New York, I was kind of miserable. Like other people didn't know this, but I remember like just, I was just, it was like such a bittersweet thing because I missed LA so much. And, again, like my brother was out there. So I was like, all right, like I got family there. And then I just so happened to have a group of friends who I went to college in Minnesota, University of Minnesota. And so I befriended a bunch of people in Minneapolis, and just by chance, a bunch of people from Minneapolis that I knew, we all moved to LA around the same time. So I just had I had a huge family, if you want to say, in LA, and I had to leave that. And I was in New York, and I was like, just what I consider.
Time for you to get uncomfortable again.
Right, time to get uncomfortable, time to, figure it out. And so during that time, early on in New York, just the struggle of, I remember even just the struggle of like finding my own apartment, finding an apartment in New York,
Yeah.
and just like how I had to go about doing it, because it was such a different process
Yeah,
than LA,
it is.
and it was more difficult because
Yeah, it's
catching the
hard.
trains and not having a car and all that, and
Yeah.
just that new lifestyle. Like I was really miserable in the beginning, like trying to adjust to it. And I mean, people didn't know it. I was acting like it was easy, and maybe let somebody else tell it. Like I moved out there and just it was smooth selling, but
Yeah.
nah.
Yeah.
So at that time, I really like just started like, I guess like understanding that like some of these things are bigger than me, and that like I need to like kind of take a step back from judging these situations that I'm in. Like, because I say judging because
I know what you mean. Yep.
yeah, because like
Looking at it like, oh, did I fail? Like after doing such amazing things, I did this with Kanye, I did with this. And I feel like with that, it's like God also, because that happened to me too. Like
Yeah.
where we feel like, dang, I was just on a fast track of success, but God is like, I just got derailed.
right.
But as we reflect, it's like, no, that was meant to happen
Yeah.
because we got to keep going.
No,
We got to
exactly.
keep going on another track for something else.
Absolutely.
And I was just being prepared in that situation for what was next. So I get it. So we could judge ourselves, especially if we're so hardworking, because I worked so hard.
Right.
Like, how did I get back in this position?
Right. Yep. And that's the thing. And then I think I'm definitely a perfectionist.
Yeah, Virgo.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a Virgo. I'm a Virgo to the T. Like, put me next to the word Virgo if you need the definition, because I am that. Really a perfectionist. And pride myself in being on point in so many different ways. So like being laid off, getting let go. That's like. That's like, oh man, like I didn't do something right here. Like something I was.
Sorry, I just want to say so many things that I don't cut you off.
Like it was like I remember like thinking like, man, like something that I did wasn't right, to where when they decided that they needed to cut the fat here at the company, that
Like you're being
I was
punished.
a part of that. Yeah,
No. It's like what I hear and it resonates is like it's just a way of God showing us like that's just a part of you.
No, for
That's
sure.
just a part of you. Let me show you other parts of
For
you that you
sure.
haven't met yet.
Yeah, I definitely questioned my abilities a lot back then.
Yeah.
I when I got laid off, I questioned, if I was good enough, if I was, I questioned that a lot. I mean, even to the point of where I remember like being so disappointed, because I was like, man, I got to my dream, I got to the dream job, I got there. And then getting laid off and being like, damn, but was I not good enough for them? Was I not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that like put a stain on me for a
Yeah.
little bit, just, in terms of when it came time to be independent. It's interesting though, because like I said, the next day after I was laid off, I mean, I was in motion, 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So like any of the self-doubt that I ever had, it never held me back from actually putting in the work and actually doing it, because I'm a doer. I'm a, I don't sit around and wait. But I definitely, while I was doing, was thinking like, am I even capable? Like, am I even like, Def Jam just fired me. Like, am I actually good enough to spearhead like some of these other people's campaigns?
Yeah.
And so spirituality, like me being in tune with that, like really, it played a major part, in me building up the confidence and understanding that like, this was happening for a reason, and that at this, season, this season that was coming, into my life was coming for a reason, not to rhyme. So, but, I definitely like had I grew a better understanding of, that I was worthy, and that this was just, a stepping stone, in the journey.
Absolutely. So you just used to doing. So one thing I definitely learned in my spiritual journey is like one thing God implanted in my mind was like, it's not about where you are or what you're doing, it's about who you are. So was there ever a time where you had to stop doing and just be? and just be still, especially when you have so much coming to you.
You know, I didn't learn how to do that until later on. Um, I used to be just go, 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 100 miles an hour. Um, I didn't have any kind of boundaries set up between, you know, work life, personal life. And I think working within the entertainment industry, it's sort of easy to do that because, again, a lot of our work, depending on like what area of it that you work in, like a lot of the work doesn't feel like work. Um, Especially if you're doing what you love to do also. So I would have a conflict with that even sometimes where I remember, you know, people would tell me like, hey, like you should slow down. You should do some things for yourself. You should. And I mean, my rebuttal to them was, but I'm doing what I love to do every single day. So like, why should I slow down if I love this shit? You know, we can cuss on this.
Yeah.
So, so I'm like, you know, why would I stop doing, you know, like what I'm doing, like if I really love it. But me not understanding that I wasn't giving myself that space to breathe, you know, giving myself that space to, you know, sort of give myself like a reset or something like that. And you know, almost burning myself out, you know, in scenarios and things like that. And so yeah, like it was something that I like really had to learn, and I had to be really intentional about it. I'm not gonna lie, like
Yeah.
it's because it's still not easy for me now,
Yeah.
even to.
It should always be intentional for anybody, with anybody.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. I mean, and you know, speaking of that word, I mean that's like one of my like buzzwords for real because you
Same.
know everything, especially nowadays,
Yeah.
like everything in my life is intentional,
Yeah.
you know, and I've learned to be more intentional about what I want, what I desire, and not just material things, you know, but like how I want
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
life to be in terms of like peace of mind, in terms of the type of people that I have around me. You know, even in terms of, you know, the type of people that I would hope to be able to do business with, you know, and that's not always, how can I say it? That's like a slippery slope sometimes because, you know, again, earlier I know I mentioned like, you know, I won't accept all money because all
Yeah.
money isn't good money. But then at the same time, in business, and if you're an entrepreneur, I mean, you know, there
Do you
are.
not think it's or believe it's 100% possible to only be able to work with people and be aligned with, you know, potential business partners, et cetera, clients, whoever you work with, that are intentional and that are the ideal client that
Yeah.
you want?
I mean, you hope to be able to, you know, find like-minded people and be able to work in that type of environment. I've been, you know, blessed that, you know, even like, you know, my business partners within Dirty Glove, you know, DGB, you know, we're all aligned, you know, to a certain degree, like moving in the same direction, you know, having a lot of the same morals and, you know, just like our moral compass, you know, like all of us, you know, just being honorable men, you know what I mean? And, you know, I feel so blessed to be able to work and work in environments with, you know, good people, you know, like that. So because everybody isn't blessed with that, and I guess, you know, a lot of that comes from the manifestation, putting that energy out there, and, you know, and commanding, you know what I mean, respect and
Yes.
all of that. But yeah, like it's, you know, that's the difficult part when you're, you know, independent, and it's like, okay, like, you know, are you going to take this check that you might not have taken another time because you need it, but it goes against, you know, your morals or not? And I've been faced with that, you know, a bunch of times, but, you know, I've been, and you might not, how can I say this? You know, you might, every project you work or everything that you work might not be so-called your cup of tea, you know what I mean, per se. But I think that as long as you, and I thankfully have never had to like, what word am I looking for? I've never had to compromise, you know, my morals or, you know, the direction I want to move in, you know, for money. And I'm just thankful, you know.
Yeah. And I believe because you were aligned, because you aligned yourself spiritually
For sure.
to have that. Yeah, that was where the question stemmed from. Like, do you not truly believe that you can 100%? It's possible
I mean, yeah, no, for sure. It definitely is, especially
Yeah.
like on the tip of like, you know, being like spiritually aligned with, you know, people and, you know, all of that. I believe that it is possible to a certain degree, but then the reason why I guess I was kind of hesitant in saying yes is because I mean, a part of life also is, you know, coming across people who might not be where you're at or who may be in a different, you know, space. And, you know, I've had scenarios where I've worked with people where it might have seemed like it would be like an unlikely pairing, but then, you know, that person being like, man, you know, me working with you, like that made me change, you know, kind of my ways of doing X, Y, and Z. And
That's why we got to be inviting, right? Because God could be
exactly.
using us to do that.
For sure, and that's where I say I've understood like even my purpose and you know and have I don't want to say come to terms with it, but like have really accepted it and embraced it. That's the word I'm looking for. And so yeah, like being able to you know identify like some of those scenarios where okay, this might be a kind of unlikely, but you know what, like this could you know something great could come from this.
Yes. Awesome. So you've dedicated so much of your time and your vision to telling other people's stories and, you know, just your journey and the heights that you have gotten to and like surpassed. Like, do you have any visions of telling your own story?
So yeah, it's funny because you know so many people have you know told me you know throughout time that I should share my story and that you know I should you know be more open about it. And you know originally you know it's from me creating this interview series, this platform to allow people to tell their stories. I mean, I guess you could say I've always moved in like sort of selfless ways. Like it's more about, you know, like other people or I'll focus more like on other people, even building other people up and brands up, things like that more than myself. So now I understand the importance of sharing my story. Like how I said earlier about being relatable, like the music being relatable, and that's why I was attracted to it so much and you know so into it. So me understanding that my story and my journey is so important for other people that are in my shoes trying to do the same things. You know, people that come from places where there aren't a lot of resources, where they may not, you know, have the know-how or even have the relationships. I mean, before I got into the industry and got into what I wanted to do, I didn't have any relationships. I don't have anybody I'm related to that's in this field. I don't have a cousin that raps or sings or used to or anything like that. So it was me just being willing to get outside of my comfort zone, meet people, network, do things like that. So I hope now in this new season of me understanding the importance of sharing my story to be able to do that, to then motivate the next execs, the next creatives, I mean, even I hope to motivate people going into professional careers as well, because, you know, what I do, at least in terms of wanting to inspire people, isn't only to inspire people to want to get into the music industry or into media or things like that. I mean, if you want to be a doctor or if a person wants to, you know, do anything, like I hope that things that I've overcome, I hope that, you know, parts of my story can just inspire somebody to just, if you believe in something or if you want, you know, to do something, to just go for it. So
Absolutely. And also, like, again, going back to what God told me is like, it's not about what you're doing or where you're at, but more so who you are. And like who you are is so inspiring. And you'd be an incredible mentor. And if you could do that with the influence that you have to like thousands and hundreds of thousands of young men and women, like that's amazing. Because also the most important thing too is like you have that spiritual aspect. And I feel like a lot more people need to learn how to move in that spiritual aspect and trusting themselves and trusting God.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. I feel like a lot, aspect that really helped me to realize like this new part of my purpose in telling my story, sharing my story. Therapy really helped me to unlock that and to sort of better understand who I am. I'm blessed to have an amazing therapist that taps into spirituality, energy, as well as, practical therapy. So basically, we do like breathing techniques. I even, through therapy, I learned like the whole like mantra, like I am.
Oh yeah,
affirmation. That I am. Yeah, exactly. Like, and having just a better understanding, of how to apply those and really like feeding more, into, myself. And even my reason for going to therapy was, because I lost my mom and it had taken me into, a dark place, for a little while, but then being able to come out of that and had and really being tapped into my spirituality even more and being more intentional about those things has helped me to gain a better understanding that, hey, like what I'm doing, number one, isn't in vain, but then number two, I need to share my story to make it not be in vain.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like not just do the work and be successful and make money and do
that's
this
all people
and do
see.
that. And that's all people see.
Yeah.
And that's all, it's like, no, because I mean, deep down, there's definitely more to me than just that.
Yeah.
And I've a lot of times maybe have allowed, people to think or see what I'll show them without giving them maybe like how deep I am, or you kind of have to know me to know that. So I'll be more surface level with other people or on social media being surface level, but then understanding like, wait a minute, like being more vulnerable, makes people relate to it more, and again like connecting to other people's stories, in certain ways too. So a lot of, things that I've gone through in the last couple of years helped me to really like get a strong grip on my spirituality, a much better understanding of myself, even a bigger purpose, and just a better understanding of my purpose, and being intentional to like really like live in that. I don't think I've ever been as intentional of living in my purpose as I am, to this day.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. So what would you say is the most powerful thing about spirituality and aligning that with what you do to be able to get to the like certain levels of success?
No, for sure. I think the strong, like the most important parts about the spirituality and what I've seen is, I would say, again, like that inner voice, me having an understanding like that's real, you know what I mean? And that like the intuition is real, and, I've never been a person who's been fast to, how can I say, like if an opportunity comes to me, I'm not fast to just jump on it without actually like thinking about it, like taking a step back, maybe praying on it, maybe consulting with my mentor or, people that are close to me to, help me gain some insight. And so, I just feel like being in tune with my spirituality even more has just given me kind of a fresher mind state, to be able to like see things and
Clarity.
That's the perfect word, because I've turned things down, currently where I'm like, you know what, like this just doesn't like sit right with me.
And
And
having discernment.
yeah, really. And like understanding that like, okay, where I'm looking to be, in the future, like these certain things, even though it might be attractive, even though it might seem like a lucrative, situation, or maybe other people see it as a lucrative situation, but there being something within me saying, you know what, like this isn't right, and being willing to listen to that and not fall into maybe temptation or, whatever would draw you to going towards something that's not right for you.
Well, I would absolutely want to say thank you, and I'm honored that you are starting to tell your story, and you're starting, with me.
No,
Even
for
if it's
sure.
just a little piece.
Yeah, for sure.
So I know there's so much more that you could tell. Because this is what, like, how many interviews have you done about yourself?
Oh man, this is like the second interview, I think. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm not. I'm usually behind the camera. I'm not in front. I'm not the in front of the camera guy. So all of this is, and even, when we spoke and when you reached out to me about doing this, I mean, you saw there was no hesitation from me, to do it, and that even came from me listening to, my intuition into myself, and knowing that this is something that I want to start doing. And then when you reached out to me, the timing, was perfect. The timing with it aligned perfectly. And then just the vibe of what this is about. And, I would rather start my interview journey talking about spirituality and vibes and energy and things like that, rather than, talking about, the different rap beef and different rumors that's going on in hip hop and stuff like that. So, it's a pleasure, for me to, be on your platform and be your first guest.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Prayer and Hustle. Yeah. So we absolutely look forward to hearing more of your story. So what's next for you?
So a lot of great things are, coming up next. We just launched DGB Music Group. So we're going to be offering artist distribution as well as label services.
Wait, how long ago did the ink dry?
Oh, the ink, I mean, like maybe like an hour ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
while he was doing this interview, y'all.
You feel me? Like seriously, like my attorney texted me and was like, "Hey, everything's final. We're good. Like, let's celebrate."
Congratulations.
So yeah, for sure. And then also, to DGB, to the platform for on the side of content. We have more series, coming. We just dropped a new docu-series called Out the Mud.
Nice.
Where we are featuring creatives and execs and more of the people behind the scenes that really make the magic happen. And so really excited about that. And we've got a lot more in store on the content side. So really excited.
We're so excited.
Yeah,
We're so excited.
sure.
Again, thank you. God bless you so much and continuing your journey. And I'm
Yeah.
so glad I could call you a friend.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.